Good morning, church. Now, one of the things I love about this church is its heart for justice. And that call to justice takes lots of different forms. And I'm saying this on Wednesday when our Capitol building is being stormed by a group of rioters. Man, there's a graphic image of the battle between value systems in our nation. But if you know me, you know that for me, the most crucial form of justice is the ecological and climate crisis that my generation is passing on to our children and grandchildren. Because if we don't deal with that, and soon, within a few decades, the struggle for all other forms of justice will be far worse off. Now, our news media focuses almost completely on bad news. So even in the midst of a pandemic, we've been fed images in 2020 of massive wildfires, an endless succession of hurricanes, melting of glaciers and polar ice, just to name a few. And that focus on the negative obscures the many ways in which 2020 was a great year in terms of dealing with the climate crisis. Many countries pledged to go carbon neutral, and they were led by China, the world's largest carbon emitter. 2020 was the year when wind power actually provided more electricity in the United States than coal. And electric cars went mainstream. I mean, VW, BMW, and General Motors have all made huge commitments to electrifying their fleets. The UK is even outlawing the sale of all gasoline and diesel cars after the year 2030. And after decades of this crisis being ignored or downplayed, our president-elect has the most aggressive climate action plan ever proposed by a president. So we're finally starting to see some real action. But still, as Bill McKibben puts it so eloquently, winning slowly is the same as losing. So I hope with all my heart that we could be an activist church on this issue. Now, in that, it's crucial for us to recognize that the climate crisis isn't separate from any of the other social justice issues we face, because the rich and powerful always dump their problems on the poor, the marginalized, on people of color. That's true about toxic waste, about polluted air and water, about the risk of getting COVID-19, about our so-called criminal justice system, and about heat waves and sea level rise. I mean, that's why we need some kind of a Green New Deal that includes marginalized people in the decision-making process and that gives them preferential opportunities and benefits. Our Christian perspective lets us see that systemic racism, sexism, homelessness, poverty, and the sixth grade extinction and the climate crisis, they're all symptoms of the same issue. And what is that? It's a closed heart. Because if people's hearts were truly open, they couldn't see another person as lesser than themselves. They would realize our oneness, and they would know immediately, as Reverend Dr. King wrote from Birmingham jail, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And he went on, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. The only difference with the climate crisis is that our closed heart is our feeling separate from the earth. But we're not separate from the earth. We are part of the earth. We're not separate from nature. We are nature. What we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. And yet, we human beings are literally treating the earth like dirt. If the power possessors on this planet could just know their oneness with the earth, honor her as the mother of us all, hold the same sense of awe and sacredness towards the plants, animals, hills, and waters that all indigenous people have, we wouldn't be ripping mountains apart and transporting megatons of coal and oil and fouling our own nest. And bringing that change of consciousness to humanity could lead to the end of the economy of greed and the beginning of the economy of God. Now, speaking personally, I've been aware of the magnitude and challenge of the climate crisis for many years. But for most of that time, I felt overwhelmed. I couldn't see how I, as a single individual, could make any significant difference. Sure, I can recycle. That's no solution. Our individual lifestyle choices do matter, but this is a systemic problem. We've got to deal with issues like gasoline and cement and electrical generation and plastic at a state, a national, and a global level. We've got to use taxes and laws and regulations and cultural change to solve this because this is huge. But recently, I've been feeling that Christianity points a way for us to deal with this kind of uphill battle because the Bible is filled with stories of individuals or small groups, often of marginalized people, going up against enormous odds and with God's help, making a startling difference. I mean, the very name for that kind of thing is a David versus Goliath situation. And in the biggest turnaround ever, Jesus' parents had to flee the authorities for his safety. As an adult, he was arrested and executed. But he overcame death itself, and his ragtag group of followers went on to found the world's largest religion. So, I would like to invite you to join me, if you are able, for a series of 4 Bible study classes in which together we can explore how some Bible passages could help us move past our collective sense of overwhelm and into effective action to deal with what I see as this most critical of justice issues. Should we focus on activism, education, science, prayer, love? The Zoom link is in Rebecca's email, and we'll start this Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Another starting point could be today's reading of Psalm 29, because it shows that God's power fills the earth. As Gerard Manley Hopkins put it, the world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. We begin by recognizing God's presence and power in the earth. The psalmist reminds us that all power and might resides in God, but God needs us to show up as well, to play our part. In the words of Teresa of Avila, Christ has nobody now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which Christ looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which Christ walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands, yours are the feet, yours are the eyes, you are his body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Individually, we are weak and powerless, but together in faith, God can work miracles through us. God has done it before, and God can do it again. Amen.